Today's video is going to be a bit of an experiment with all things about getting wood in Valheim. Today I have 5 methods, and one of those methods I've actually split up into an early game and a late game so that we can really test this out and do a bit of an experiment to see what the quickest ways of getting wood are. So the 5 methods that I'm going to be covering today, and I will chapter this video if you want to skip ahead to any of them. Starting off with number 1 is going to be just the normal method of running into a forest, hitting trees so they hopefully fall into each other, knock each other down, and seeing how much wood we can get. And all of these tests, I should say, are going to be done over 10-minute intervals, and then at the end I'll post the results all compared against each other. Now the normal method is the one that I'm splitting into 2, so I'm going to start off by doing it with just a stone axe at level 1. I'm going to set my skill level for woodcutting to level 10, and I'm going to use just honey, raspberries, and also boar meat. I'm then going to do a late game version with better food and better weapons and that sort of thing, and also a better skill level, so that you can see at what stage you're at of the game whether this is the best method for you or not. After that, I'm going to look at the crystal Battleaxe method of chopping down wood, and we're then going to try a couple of different mobs. So method 3 will be using a troll that has a club in its hand, and method 4 will be using the new Abomination mob to see if either of those are better than the previous methods. And the 5th method that I will be doing in today's video is making up a tree farm, and again seeing how much wood we can get in that 10-minute period to see whether or not making tree farms is actually worth it, as opposed to just running out and chopping down trees in the forest. So hopefully at the end of today's video this will be a good encompassing guide for how to get the most wood whatever stage you're at in Valheim. So let's jump straight into method 1. Guys, just a quick side note, I don't end up making the tree farm in this video. I want to mention that now so there's sort of full transparency here. I do explain later on in the video the reason why I don't make the tree farm, and I actually don't think it is going to be the fastest way of getting wood, apart from a very few select examples which I do go through later. But I wanted to mention that now so that you know that before we get to the end of the video. Okay, so method 1, guys, here's what's going to happen. I have on me a stone axe at level 1. I also have some honey, some raspberries, and some cooked boar meat, all of which I'm going to eat just before I start. This is to simulate, obviously, being in an early game situation. Now, I am using God mode and Ghost mode and good armor, and the reason for that is because I'm trying to isolate as many variables as I possibly can here to really just look at what the fastest way of chopping down wood is if all other things are equal. That being said, I do want this to be an early game comparison, so what I've done is also set my woodcutting skill to level 10 for this, which is a reasonable early game woodcutting skill if you've started with a new character in a new world. So what I'm going to do, guys, is just start by chopping down all of this wood and putting it into the cart. I'll also just note that I'm not using any boss abilities for this particular one. I'm assuming early game we're using it without any boss abilities, even Eikther. For the end game one that I come on to, there will be we'll use the elder cutting ability. So let's jump into this, do 10 minutes of wood cutting and see how much wood ends up in the cart at the end of that 10 minutes. Okay, so I just did 10 minutes there of chopping down some trees around this area, and let's have a look at the results. Now, to be honest, this is a lot more than I actually expected I would get in this time. It feels so slow doing it with a stone axe and with just a low wood cutting skill level. But as you can see here, we got 100, 250, 60, 276 for this method. Now, at the end, as I say, I'm going to have a little spreadsheet and I'll put all of these methods against each other so you can easily compare them. I'm just going through them one by one at this stage. Now, just to say a couple of things like notes on this, I did have to repair my stone axe twice during that period, and as you can see, it's almost coming to a 3rd time of needing to be repaired. So that's something to bear in mind. If I had a good rested buff, I'm doing this with 0 rested buff. Again, it's just one of the variables that I can then keep the same throughout this whole thing. But if I did have a good rested buff, I might have used the axe a little bit more and needed to repair it a 3rd time. So it's worth like making a note. You'll need to set that up. Also, as much as I'm trying to keep all these variables as like similar as I can, there will always be some differences. Like, for example, we've done this area of the woods. I'm now going to go to another dense area of the woods, but of course it will not be identical. So hopefully, though, this will give like a pretty decent overview as to exactly, you know, the situation of the best way to get wood. Okay, so now we're going to do method number 2, which is again just the normal way of going into a forest and chopping down wood, but a more late game version. So what I mean by that is we're going to be using a black metal axe that is at level 4, and I'll go ahead and use some of this good food here as well. The other thing I've done is gone ahead and set my wood cutting to level 50. Again, I think this is reasonable for a late game approach to chopping down wood, and we're going to see what difference this makes. We also are going to be using the elder ability this time because there's no reason you wouldn't have this if you're late game wood cutting. And the reason I wanted to do the comparisons because I think often you're going to be doing a lot of your wood cutting late game when you get into the building side of this game after you've completed all of the bosses. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead, eat the beet berries. When that's all reset, all of my food stuff, I'm going to then eat the good food and do another 10 minutes of chopping down wood, and we'll do a comparison to see how much wood we get into the cart during this phase. So as you can see around me, I have chopped down quite a large area of wood for this test, and as you can see in the cart here, we have 650 wood in total, and we only got through, I should say, half of the durability of the axe. So that was quite encouraging, and it was good because I feel like I have to grind a lot of wood, but to actually get this amount in this space of time, I was actually really pleased with that. Obviously, you do a lot of wood chopping in Valheim, and it's good to know how much you're actually getting during that amount of wood chopping. So time for method number 2 now, and that is going to be using the crystal Battleaxe. So for this one, I'm going to have the crystal Battleaxe fully upgraded, as you can see here. I'm also going to eat all of these high-end food items as well. Although you might not have access to all of these at the point of the game when you can get the crystal Battleaxe, you will be reasonably late game, and this will give it a better comparison, as it will be the same as what we did with the black metal axe. So we've got the same foods, the same rested buff, the same time, and all that good stuff. I'm also going to activate the Elder ability. I don't actually know whether this has an impact, if it's done like by the weapon or the process of chopping trees. It doesn't really matter though. I'm just trying to keep as many things the same as I said before to give this as fair a test as possible. So obviously one of the big things about the crystal Battleaxe is that when you're using it, you can get close to trees and chop down several at the same time if you see trees that are near to each other. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this 10 minutes goes. Let me go ahead and get this food done, the stamina done, get my timer going, and I'll come back in 10 minutes and let you know how it all went. So that was 10 minutes of fun with my crystal Battleaxe, and these are the results. So 572, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 572 is the amount of wood that we got from the crystal Battleaxe. So again, not a terrible result, something we're going to look at the end and, you know, put it into context and such. There's really not like much downside to using this. So I would say as well, the other advantage to having the crystal Battleaxe is if you're chopping down wood and an enemy comes at you, you've got the weapon in your hand ready to go. So yeah, that can be useful too. I mean, the black metal axe can work as a good weapon, I suppose, as well, but just some things to sort of consider. So that was the results for that one. Next up, we're going to have a look at the mobs, so the troll and the abomination. Okay, so now for the third method, and that is going to be using a troll. You can see we've got a troll here with a big log in his hand. Now we are currently in ghost mode, so he's not actually able to see us and doesn't know what you know, that we're here. What I'm going to do is get my recording going for the 10 minutes. Obviously, I'm in God, so I can't die, and so I'll factor that in. And then I'll get out of ghost mode, let him chop down some trees, and let's see how we go. Okay, ghost mode is false, so now I just need to get him over here into the trees and start this 10-minute timer once we are in here and he starts to chop down some wood. So guys, devastation around us as the troll has done his thing, and I was quite surprised about this one actually. In the end, I actually overran a little bit and got closer to about 11 minutes because it took me a long time to pick up all of the wood. Now this is how much wood we got. So you see that 100, 200, 3, 4, 512 wood on there. So that would put it somewhere in between the early game normal method and the late game method. So early game, this would probably be a fantastic thing to do. However, there are a couple of things to mention. First of all, with a troll, you can of course get things like fine wood and core wood before you have the right axe for them. So even if you just got a stone axe, the troll can access those things for you in the game, which does come with other advantages. The other obvious thing to say about the troll is of course you need a troll. So you have to find one, kite it to the area where you want him to chop down the wood, and sometimes it can take a while to find one, especially one that's got a log in its hand, which is the best troll to use for this method. But something that does kind of counteract that, if you have a look here, there are tons of logs here that have been cut down that I could then go around with my axe afterwards and chop down, and of course a lot of the damage has already been done to them. So I would suggest that maybe getting a troll to rampage through a forest for a long period of time, then going around after it and just chopping down the wood yourself is possibly the best option in the game if you see a troll, and if you don't, maybe you just get on with your late game method. But that's the results, that's what we've got. Again, we'll look at all this in conjunction at the end, but I was pleasantly surprised at how much wood we actually managed to get by using the troll method. So next up, it's time for the abomination, and this should be quite an interesting one because I don't believe anyone has actually done testing of this. I certainly haven't seen it myself just yet. Obviously the abomination being a new mob to the game, but I have noticed when I'm fighting them, they do take down quite a lot of trees, and I thought it'd be interesting to include in this video just for the sake of including it really. So once again, I am in God mode, and that means the abomination will not be able to attack me. What I'm going to do is run around until one of these spawns, get it near to as many trees as I can, time it for 10 minutes, and again I will review at the end and see exactly how many trees it cuts down and how much wood that we get. All right guys, so after having an abomination on the loose there for the 10 minutes, this is what we ended up with, and it's not fantastic, but you do of course get ancient wood from this method, or ancient bark I should say. I mean, it's assuming you're doing it in a swamp. You could kite the abomination to a different biome, but it's going to be a little bit tricky. You're mostly going to be doing this of course in a swamp. So as you can see here, under 200 wood from this, so it's literally worse. I think it's the worst worst method so far, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I mean, if you need the ancient bark as well, then there's that, I suppose. I did find it a bit of a pain, and we attracted a lot of mobs, which is not a problem for me because I'm doing this, as I say, in God and Ghost mode in order to try and reduce the variables, as I said at the start of this video. But for you guys, and anytime I'm doing this in survival, this would definitely not be my go-to method. It was a little bit tricky, and yeah, probably don't recommend this one. But hey, at least we tried it, and now we have our answer. Originally, I did plan on building a tree farm to test out in this video, but as I was starting to do it, I realized it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I wanted to not change the intro and still mention that there would be a tree farm tested, because I do want to talk about it and look at it from a logical point of view with building a tree farm in Valheim and whether or not it's going to be worth it. So the first thing to consider is, of course, in order to build the tree farm, you're going to need a lot of resources, and in particular, probably quite a lot of rock. The reason for that is that most of the tree farms that work well that I've seen would involve you building up big rock walls all around the outside of this thing, right? And that's the way that then you put all the trees in the middle, you hit them down, and they roll all around each other. Now, I mean, in terms of doing that, I just don't see that it's hugely necessary to do, and there's a couple reasons for this. First of all, the amount of trees naturally spawned in the game of Valheim is a crazy amount, and if you're playing a single player, you're 100% never ever going to run out. I'm going to come on to playing on servers in a second because there is a slight difference, but I still don't think it's worth it. So you can run through the forest and you can cut down all the trees. Obviously, you are also able to replant trees, and rather than making a specific tree farm using loads of resources and loads of time to do that, it's so much easier to just replant them and replant the forest and then go back to it. And using that method, when you're actually replanting these trees, once you've got through an entire forest, in the future, well, that forest is going to be back there again once it regrows. And if you've got, say, 3 or 4 different forests around that you can go to, as you're chopping down one, the other one, the time is being used up for it to regrow. In order to make a tree farm that's actually going to compete with some of the methods we've looked at here today, it would have to be absolutely huge. And so this is potentially going to be controversial, and I would definitely welcome any thoughts and criticisms and feedback in the comments, guys, about this if you really think a tree farm is worth doing. And it is perhaps something I'll explore in the future. Maybe I just haven't seen a good enough way of doing a tree farm yet or something like that. But I just wanted to explain why I'm not going to include it in today's video and why I just don't think it's going to be really worth doing in a survival series or game mode, I should say, when you're playing single player. Now, on a server, I can definitely see the argument for making a tree farm, because if there's a lot of people living near you and you're all sharing those same trees, there is an argument there. That being said, again, there's so many. I mean, if we get the map up right here and you look at the number of areas you can go to chop down trees, just by setting up portals to different areas, you're going to, again, be able to go and chop down loads of different trees and replant them. And it'd have to be one heck of a busy server, I think, before this becomes, the point where it's necessary to have a tree farm. Those are my thoughts, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. If you agree or if you disagree, please do let me know in the comments. But now I'm going to go to the sort of results section and we'll evaluate which of the methods seems to be the best. So here are the results that we got from these tests, and basically it depends what stage you're at of the game. So early game, your best bet by far would be to kite a troll into the forest, and you can see that roughly speaking you're going to get about double what you'd get by just whacking away at it with your stone axe. And then once you've killed the troll, you could probably go around and use your stone axe to clear up some of the bits the troll didn't quite smash, and already they will be quite damaged. You will get a lot of wood from them, and you'll also get wood that you can't normally get in the early game, such as the fine wood or core wood, depending on where the troll is stood. So that's quite useful. But if you are late game and you have the choice between all of these, the normal late game method is actually the best, it seems. And I could definitely have made this better as well. I could have had a rested buff, I could have used stamina potions, and I probably could have also been in a better area for collecting the wood. Maybe, took my cart around with me, used portals, things like this that I could have done that I didn't want to do today in order to standardize these tests. And so you can get quite a lot from that. If there is a troll in the area and it's holding a club in the late game, it might be an idea to let him chop down the forest and then again go around behind him. But the difficulty in finding these trolls, sometimes it can take a lot of time, probably means it's less efficient than just using the normal late game method. And then you could look at the crystal Battleaxe as a pretty decent middle game method of collecting your wood. Obviously, you get the materials to make this in the mountain biome, so you're not quite going to be at the black metal stage yet, but you can still do pretty well with getting your wood. So hopefully this really clears up like the different methods of getting wood and what's best for you depending on your stage of the game. As I said throughout this video, I do highly invite you guys to get involved down in the comments and just let me know any of your thoughts and opinions on this stuff. But for now, here come the dad jokes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Why don't trees like difficult riddles? Because they don't enjoy being stumped. How do bees travel from one tree to another? They take the buzz. Do you know the brief explanation of an acorn? In a nutshell, it's just an oak tree. How did the tree make new friends? it decided to branch out. Why was the weeping willow crying so much? Because it watched a sappy movie.